Hello everybody, it's Becky here, and today we're going to be talking about the exciting topic of insurance. Now I know this might not seem like the most exciting thing in the world, but it is really important that you and your parents know what you're covered for, and any limitations that might apply so that you can take appropriate steps to protect yourselves, protect your belongings, and you kind of know what to expect in the very unlikely situation that anything goes wrong. So if you don't have your parents with you at the moment, that's fine, but it might be worth letting them know about this presentation and getting them to sit down with a cup of coffee and a biscuit and watch it just quickly so that everyone's clear on what's going on. So the key thing to understand with insurance is that you are covered. You don't really need to worry about taking out extra insurance. All of the insurance that we have as a UK contingent is kind of as comprehensive as it's possible to get. And so it's very unlikely that any extra policies you might take out for yourself or you might already have as part of your kind of family's policies or anything like that, they're probably not going to cover more than what the UK contingent one does. There are actually two insurance policies which have been taken out for the UK contingent. The first one is more about the event itself, so it's kind of covering event cancellation or people suddenly not being able to attend the Jamboree. And the second one is more like your standard travel insurance, medical insurance, personal belongings, that kind of stuff. I'm mainly going to be talking about the second one today because that's one that probably applies to you guys. The cover's all been arranged through a company called Unity. Now that's the company which the Scout Association uses for its own insurance. So if you injure yourselves at a scouting event, just normally a weekly meeting or a scout camp, you're covered by a company called Unity, and all the profits from Unity go back into scouting. However, it is worth noting that our policies for the Jamboree are actually with Allianz, and Millwall is the main one. So if you have a claim and you need to put it through, we will obviously guide you on how to do that and provide you with some advice and support, but that will go through Millwall. So if your scout leader or another scout volunteer says to you, oh yeah, just ring up Unity, please don't. They're not actually providing the cover. They've arranged it for us, but they're not our insurer. Our insurer is with Millwall, and we will give you some details on how to get in touch with them. Okay. For those of you that are really keen and want to read every single word, you can view the policy documents online. The link is on the slide here. But for most of you, hopefully this presentation will suffice in giving you all that you need to know. So I'm very briefly just going to touch on event cancellation so that everyone is aware of what we are covered for and can just be reassured that we're okay. So our event cancellation policy covers pretty much anything that might cause the Jamboree to be cancelled. So that includes stuff like a head of state dying and a period of national mourning being declared, acts of terrorism, natural disasters, kind of war or conflict. Basically anything that might stop the Jamboree from running or might stop us from being able to travel to the Jamboree. Of course, this is really, really unlikely, but it is nice to know that we're covered should the worst happen. The other thing to just be aware of, though, is that the event cancellation policy is for the UK contingent fee, not kind of personal costs. So I'm afraid you won't be able to claim for things like having to buy a new sleeping bag that you then never get to use or buying some new shoes. It will come back to the county. So essentially what that means is all of that £160,000 that we fundraised, the vast majority of that would be insured in the event that the Jamboree got cancelled, and obviously then we'd hope to try and reschedule something or do something else instead. But it is nice to know that all that money we've worked so hard to fundraise isn't kind of completely down the pan should the worst happen. However, the main thing that you probably are more interested in is your kind of personal level of cover, including stuff like travel insurance. So the travel part of the policy is very much what you would normally expect from a travel policy. So we're covered for things like flight delays, lost bags along the way, kind of all of that normal stuff. And of course, we have to take appropriate steps to ensure that we don't let anything go wrong. So of course we'll be getting to the airport in plenty of time to allow for any delays. We've made sure that bags are well labelled and have your names and emergency contact numbers and things on them. So as long as we've taken all those steps, we're perfectly covered. And just so you're aware, the cover does begin as soon as we board the coach at Pear Tree Services on the 20th of July. So as soon as we get on that coach as a unit, that's when the travel insurance kicks in, and it ends when we get back to those services at the end. So we're covered for coach travel in the UK, in the USA, in Canada. Our flights are covered, kind of anything like that, public transport, all of those sorts of things we are totally covered for. So that's nice and reassuring. Probably the slightly more important one, though, is about your personal level of cover. And this is really where you may have to make a claim should something go wrong. Like I've said already, if you need to make a claim, we will help you with that. We will be able to talk you through the process. It's certainly nothing to worry about, but it's worth having an overview of what you're covered for. So of course, for the bulk of our time, we'll actually be on the Jamboree site. And when we're on the Jamboree site, the medical facilities there are absolutely amazing. They have what are really almost hospital level facilities, and they are free of charge. You won't be asked to pay anything. We don't need to make an insurance claim if you use those on-site medical facilities, and they can deal with anything from needing a plaster for a small cut through to kind of x-rays or stitches, anything like that. So they do have the facilities on site to do the vast majority of things. They can reset bones, they can put plaster casts on, they can, like I say, x-ray, stitch people up, put drips in people, deliver antibiotics, various other prescription medication can be provided. So it's very, very unlikely that you will need to leave the Jamboree site for medical care during our time there. Of course, should that happen, or should you need medical attention during our time in New York, during our time in Washington, or whilst we're on HOHO in Canada, that's the point at which the insurance kicks in. So essentially, you're covered for kind of anything that might go wrong, and your medical bills will be covered for that. There is some compensation for severe life-changing injuries, but it is quite limited. And you can check out the travel documents online if you want to know more about that. But really, the insurance is about making sure that you get patched up and that you get home safely. So also covered in the insurance are things like repatriation if you need to fly home separately to the rest of the unit, or if you can't fly home with us for any reason, then that's all covered as well. So you don't need to worry about what might happen if you're ill or injured. The bits that are really important, though, are making sure that you have done everything possible to make sure that you are covered. So if you've got any kind of existing medical condition, whether that is physical or mental, you need to make sure that you have declared that on your health form. So when you went online and you filled in the online health forms, you told people about your allergies, your medications, all of that kind of stuff, you need to have declared any pre-existing medical conditions on that form. Okay, if you didn't do that, you might not be covered if those existing conditions suddenly get worse whilst we're away. So if you've not done that, or something's emerged since you filled in those forms, can you please email the unit leaders as soon as possible so that we can then put you in touch with the UK contingent and get that information added to your profile. As long as you've declared your forms, you're then covered for any kind of deterioration in those existing medical conditions, provided that that deterioration was kind of unexpected, unforeseen, not easily preventable, and that prior to departing for the Jamboree, your normal GP would have considered you fit to travel. So what that really means is if you've got asthma and you are normally absolutely fine, you have an inhaler that you use every day, and your asthma is very stable, very well managed, then you would be covered should you suddenly suffer from a really severe asthma attack whilst we're away and need hospitalising for that. Because your doctor would have said, yep, fine, no problem with you going on camp for a few weeks, you've taken your inhaler every morning as you're meant to, and you just got unlucky. That would be absolutely fine. What wouldn't be fine is if, say, we went to the Jamboree, you didn't take your inhalers with you and you didn't use your preventative inhaler every morning like you're supposed to, and then you had an asthma attack. At that point, the insurance may not cover you because you could have prevented that deterioration, but you didn't. So it's really a case of making sure that you know what your conditions are, you've declared them on your form, and you take all the normal, appropriate measures that your doctor would expect you to keep yourself fit and well. If you're in any doubt about that, you've got any questions, please do contact the unit leaders. The key thing to remember though is you do not need a fit to travel note, so you don't need to see your GP and get any kind of formal paperwork from them, but you might just want to make them aware that you're going, because of course if you need to make a claim, then the first thing the insurance company is likely to do is contact your GP and say, would you have considered this person fit to travel? And if they say no, or I don't know, that could make filling in the claim paperwork a little bit more tricky. So if you're concerned, just make sure your GP is aware of things. Personal cover for injuries and illnesses is also only included if your injury or illness arises as part of the Jamboree programme, and by that we mean the whole programme from boarding the coach at Pear Tree Services through to getting back, so ho-ho, our sightseeing in New York, all of those kinds of things are included within that Jamboree programme category, and also are in line with normal UK scouting rules. What that really means is that anything you choose to do that would not normally be allowed in Scouts or isn't covered by our normal rules, you might not be covered for if you injure yourself doing it. A good example might be something like climbing a tree. That's not part of the Jamboree programme. You're not going to at any point be encouraged by an adult leader to climb a tree. It's not normally in our Scout rules. We don't climb trees. That's not an activity that we do, or at least not without safety equipment. So therefore, if you decided off your own back to go and climb up a tree, fell out and broke an arm or something like that, you might not be insured because that's not part of the Jamboree programme. That's not what our insurance company has signed up to cover us for. However, things like tripping over a tent peg or falling off a skateboard at the skate park at the Jamboree or anything like that is absolutely covered. That's a normal part of the Jamboree. As long as you are following the instructions that adult leaders have given you, then you would be absolutely fine. So really the moral of the story with this is don't do anything stupid. If you know that you'd get told off for doing it, or if a leader has told you not to do it, or a leader's asked you to stop doing it, stop doing it. And then you'll be absolutely fine. Okay, so as long as you're being sensible and keeping yourself safe, then all will be fine. The next part of personal cover is about your personal belongings, and this includes things like your money, travel documents, your valuables such as phones and cameras, that kind of stuff. So the insurance does provide cover for your personal belongings, but it's worth being aware that an excess of £100 applies to each claim. That's not each item, that's each claim that you need to make. An excess, for anyone who's not aware, is the amount that you would have to pay before the insurer starts covering it. So for example, if somebody if you lost or somebody stole your camera and your camera was worth £120, then the insurance would only pay you £20. So the first £100 would be yours to pay, and then the insurance would top up anything above that. Okay. What that really means is there's no point claiming for anything that is lost or stolen under £100 because you won't actually get anything for it. There are also some limits on the total value of stuff you can claim for. There's lots of variations about things like mobility aids and various other bits, but generally the key figures are in total you cannot claim for more than £10,000 worth of stuff, and any individual item cannot be claimed for more than £2,000 worth of value. Now for the majority of you, I would very much hope you're not going to be bringing £10,000 worth of valuables with you to the Jamboree, and similarly I suspect that very few of you would be having individual items worth any more than £2,000. But potentially those of you with kind of medical equipment such as hearing aids or things like that might have things that are valuable, so it's worth just knowing what those limits are. The key things from a unit member's perspective, however, are that you have to record anything that is lost or stolen as soon as it goes missing. That means if you get back to the site and you cannot find your phone, obviously have a good look for it, but then tell the unit leaders straight away and get us to record it. We have an app that we can record things on. If you later find your phone, it was in your pocket, it was in the bottom of your sleeping bag or wherever, that's fine. You won't get in any trouble. We can cancel that claim straight away really easily. However, if you don't tell us about it until the end of the Jamboree or a few days later, then the insurance company might not cover it. So it's really important that anything lost or stolen that's of value gets recorded straight away. The second really important thing is that you need to have taken reasonable steps to protect your valuables and your personal belongings. What that really means is if you've left your mobile phone at one of the charging stations and you've wandered off to go to the loo and left it there unsupervised, the insurance company aren't going to cover that if somebody walks off with it. You've not taken reasonable steps to protect it. Similarly, leaving things lying around the campsite where we're staying aren't going to be covered. Having your phone in a back pocket of your jeans that isn't zipped up whilst we're in New York, not going to be covered. So really it's about thinking carefully about where you put your valuables, what you do with them, and how you make sure that they're not a target for thieves. We'd love to believe that nobody will steal anything. We're all scouts, we should be trusted, it's a jamboree, but unfortunately thefts do happen. There are lots of scouts there from very, very poor parts of the world, and unfortunately the temptation for them to take something that doesn't seem that important to you is there, and so things do go missing and you do need to take reasonable steps. This includes things like passports, so think about where you're going to put your passport in your tent, the bottom of your sleeping bag or a separate bag within your holdall that's been padlocked shut. Things like that are a really good idea, and make sure that you can demonstrate to the insurer that you've taken reasonable steps to protect your belongings. You don't need to go mad, but you do need to be sensible to make sure that everything is included. So the final bit to talk to you about, which kind of comes under personal belongings, is money. Now, unfortunately, your cover for spending money does vary a little bit depending on how old you will be at the time of the Jamboree. So if you'll be over 16 at the Jamboree, you're insured for up to £500 of personal spending money. If you're under 16, I'm afraid it's only £250. Realistically, however, you shouldn't be bringing that much anyway. All of your food, all of your travel, all your activities, all your accommodation, absolutely everything is paid for by us and by the £160,000 that we fundraised. So any money you are bringing is genuinely just your own personal spending money for souvenirs or the odd ice cream or can of Coke somewhere. As with personal belongings, there's £100 excess on any claim, so if you lose your wallet and it's got 50 quid in it, I'm afraid that 50 quid is gone. And therefore it's also worth thinking, just like you will do with your other valuables, about how you're going to safeguard your money. So not putting notes loose in open pockets, making sure they're in a wallet, making sure that wallet's in your zipped bag or a zipped pocket. Not leaving stuff lying around as with your other valuables. It also might be worth thinking about kind of prepaid travel cards. We've already shared some information about FairFX, which is one option, but there are many out there. A lot of these cards can be topped up remotely by your parents, or you can kind of request a top up via an app if you need more money on them, and they can also be blocked quite easily if someone steals the card or you lose the card. Then it can stop anyone having access to your money and mean that there's never so much of a risk of a large amount going missing. Worth thinking about and discussing with your parents. So that's kind of it for insurance. That's all there is to say. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope that was at least a little bit useful and informative. As I've said already, any questions, any problems, any concerns, please do check out the insurance page, which was linked back at the start of this presentation, and then if you've still got questions, please feel free to contact the unit leaders and we'll do our best to help. Really the key message though is we're covered, everything's fine, as long as we are sensible and we take appropriate steps to look after ourselves and our belongings, then we are covered for pretty much any eventuality, so there really is no need to worry. Otherwise, thank you very much again for listening, and I will see you, if not at a fundraiser before, then I'll see you in just under 4 weeks when we head off to North America. Thanks very much. Bye bye.